Hey, do you like cold water? Me too. I want to thank the sponsor, the coldest water. This thing will hold your water cold for 36 hours or hot for 12 hours, which is pretty good. So if you want to win one of these, there'll be a link in the description. Or if you just want to buy one, there's also a link in the description. All right, Mark. Welcome to the Jehu Garcia podcast.
Well, thank you for having me, man.
Yes, I've been wanting to have a conversation with you for a while. Now, the last few guests have been very related to you. They're shops that convert vehicles. And for those of you who don't know, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do with Moment?
Sure. Our company, Moment Motor Company, we're here in Austin, Texas, and we do conversions on classic cars and trucks primarily. Our goal is to kind of keep these beautiful cars on the road and preserve that classic driving experience. So.
Yes, you and I met at the Fully Charged event in Austin. Yeah, to tell the truth, I didn't know about you guys before that, and when I showed up, you guys were the star of the show. Like guys.
We were fortunate. They gave us a nice spot, and I think we got.
Well, it's hard to compete against beautiful classic cars.
Yes, indeed. I know.
And you had all of them. You had like all the iconic cars. Oh, the only thing you're missing was the VW bus. But
right. Hey, I figure other people are doing that. You guys do that better than we do.
I don't know, man. I think, but you had everything else. You had a Mini Cooper, like the original '60s Mini Cooper. Yep. You had what else you had there?
We had a Porsche 912, a long hood at 68. We had that BMW 2002s there.
The 2002 super iconic vehicle. I mean, we always want to convert one of those. That's at the top of the charts.
They're
convert,
great.
Right?
They really are great. And then we had that Datsun 280Z.
280Z.
And then and we had that Cobra replica that we were starting on. So
the Cobra, yes.
Yeah,
and that's exactly. And for those of you who don't know, the Cobra is an iconic car from the 60s, 70s, right? I think
60s for sure. You go watch Ford versus Ferrari.
Yes.
Tell you the whole story.
Yes, you do appreciate them much more once you know the history behind. Because I tell you, I've seen. I mean, Cobras are like almost the most reproduced car ever, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And you always see them, you're like, what is that weird looking car, I know. You don't really like them, you don't appreciate them until you see the history. You're like, oh, this is an amazing car,
Yeah, it is.
For its time, it was winning all the races. They put a lot of time into that, right? And so it's just a lot of. So now that we're converting them, we're sacrilege.
Yes, sacrilege, exactly.
But on that particular one, you're putting two motors, right?
Yeah, that one's getting our stacked dual motor system in that. So it should have about 330 foot-pounds of torque and about 260 horsepower. So it should be plenty.
It should live up to its legacy.
Yes, it will. It will definitely.
Yeah, because what did those used to have originally?
So that's as a replica, they tend to build them with the Ford Blueprint 302, which is about a 350 horsepower V8. But that particular body style, when they were racing them, they put the 427 in it, which I don't know the specs on it. Obviously, in race form, it was even more monstrous. But it's hard to imagine because we got that car with the 302 in it, and you drive it around, and the prior owner didn't have it in a very good state of tune, but still, just tipping into the secondaries on that car just light up the rear tires. It weighs nothing, and you put a monster V8 in it, and it just absolutely is terrifying. And then we're putting these electric motors in. There's a big difference. I mean, V8 power is something to be reckoned with, but it's not instant torque like an electric motor is. And so when we put that dual in it, it's we're getting very close to having it on the road now, and it's I'm excited about that. I think it's gonna be a really, really fast car.
Yeah, it's gonna be one of those again, iconics. Yeah. And you guys stole the show because you had all those cars there at the same time, while the rest of like us that came in from out of town, we had nothing. We just brought ourselves, right? But I mean, Rivian was right next to you guys. They had a pretty good. I mean, that truck is really good looking. I pre-ordered. both of those
Yeah,
vehicles. Yeah,
both of them, really. You're
both of
getting them
them.
all.
So, yeah, I want to be able to. Yeah, I just want to be able to be like a first because I totally missed the my turn at the Tesla. You know, Teslas were too expensive, and I just wasn't in the right place to get one in the early days. But now with Rivian, I think I want to be able to kind of make videos and just push. I'm not really a truck person, but I love SUVs. As you can see, I love anything that can carry people.
Utility.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the SUV caught my attention. I'm like, oh my god! But then I found out that it was going to be released later. Yeah. At that time, they said it was going to be released a year after the truck. So then I thought, I can't wait a year. Like, I got to get the truck and then make videos about it or whatever. So that's why I pre-ordered the truck. Now I think it's only like a month between them two.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
they're having to update all their schedules due to everything. I know they were shut down for a while. And what's happening. So.
Yeah. So it was Rivian, and then there was a bunch of like DIY. Everybody had their Teslas there, but Teslas. Yeah. Teslas are cool, but after a while, you've seen one, you've seen them all, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, that's what, I mean, honestly, that is the impetus for what we're doing. I mean, literally the first time that I went into doing this and kind of doing the prototype, it's after discussions with people who were saying, I love the idea of a Tesla, love the idea of what they're doing, the technology, the, brand new American car company, but it was, they were becoming ubiquitous. You see them everywhere, and people were just not. You're not pulling up to a valet or pulling up to to work or at a stop sign or something like that, and having anybody give you a second look at all, right? But versus, as you drive that bus, and people they're constantly waving at you, constantly looking at it, and it's that engagement. That's what it's all about. It's unique, and I think it fulfills people, right? It makes them just happy. You see it, right? They just smile, they're waving, right? And I think there's something special about driving a car like that.
Yeah, it is a weird thing. Like there are people that like doing things just like everyone else, but then there's people like us that we like doing things different, right? So when Teslas were different in the early days, we were like, let's drive this, let's do the thing. But now they become the norm. You're like, okay, what else is there? It's like everybody's driving. It's you're one of the two kind, and so you can never stay there. Like it's when the thing that it was cool to you becomes cool to everyone else, then you're like, well, let's move on to the next thing. Where's the next cool thing, right?
Yep.
And that is, I think one of those things is still classic conversions. I think. I think there's a lot. There's so many reasons. People would say, why would you convert an old car instead of just buying a new one? What do you usually say to those people?
Well, I mean, I think I talk about this all the time, and this notion of that classic driving experience, right? Like, as Jay, like you're driving that bus and you're looking out through that split window, right? Like there's no other experience like that, right? Like that experience is like nothing. Or you're driving in a Porsche 911 over those fenders, or there is nothing like that experience, right? And especially with a modern car, right? So I feel like these are works of art, right? You said the word iconic, right? Like when you saw our lineup. And that's not by accident, right? We're choosing these cars because they're cars that tug at people's heartstrings, right? And people literally, every time you come up to a stop sign, somebody's telling you a question, telling you a story, asking you a question, and that engagement and that feeling is tremendous. And I mean, I've owned classic cars my entire life, and I feel like it is always part and parcel with this feeling of anxiety as you're driving around going, what's that smell again? Like, is my clutch burning? Like it's right. And you're going, what's that noise? Oh, it's ticking again. I don't know what that tick. I thought, right. And it's just, it saps the enjoyment out of it, right? You're worried that you're going to stall at the stop sign. You're worried that you're going to be on the side of the road. And I mean, I've had those cars where, my wife never again. We're never driving in that car again, because we were in the middle of that intersection. We had to get the police car to push us out, and then we're on the side of the road waiting for the tow truck, right? All that, right? Like, it just takes everything away. And so, we're not out to, like, I do feel like we get constantly, badgered by some people who are just think that what we're doing is terrible, right? And I think, no, we're allowing these cars to get out of the garages, get out on the roads, be enjoyed and revered the way they're supposed to be. To me, I just don't get the criticism. I get it that people get, they're worried about the sound, and they're worried about the, the soul of the car. But I mean, as you know, anybody who's ridden in your bus, right, probably forgets everything that they cared about and about that old Volkswagen engine, right? Like, they go, this is incredible. Yeah. This is what it is. So.
Well, I think it's two different things. I think people confuse two different things. Like, cars are different things to different people. Mm-hmm. And there are people who enjoy working on cars.
Right. That is true. I agree.
Mm-hmm. All right. It's like, hey, BWs are great because you're always working on them. If you love working on them, they're great because they always need your constant attention.
Right.
You always have to be adjusting valves. You always have to be adjusting brakes. You're always having to, like, straighten it out because it's veering off or whatever.
Right.
No, that's great. If you love working on vehicles, you would want to get one of these ones that always requires you to work on them. But there are, the vast majority of people, I think, enjoy cars because they want to drive them. And we want to get on and just drive without worrying about if the clutch is going to, or if it's going to stop.
And I think you can be both people, Jay, who, like, that, to me, I knew how to fix everything in my cars. I knew it. I didn't want to do it every time, right? As you know, right? It's not a sense of concern or of, am I going to be able to fix this? Am I ever going to? I didn't want to deal with it, right? Like, I didn't want to. I wanted to drive the car. I wanted to love it and experience it and do that. And I think that that's true of most people. I think there's,
I think the vast majority there, because don't get me wrong, working on a car,
it's fulfilling,
enjoyable. I mean,
it is.
I was not a car guy before this.
Yeah.
Right. I'm a carpenter. I make camera stuff. I'm in the computers. I'm into making videos. But as soon as I wanted a Tesla and I couldn't get one, and then I was like, well, screw it, I'm gonna have to DIY one.
Right.
Then you're like, oh my God, this is so much work. First of all, that's the first thing that you realize. These machines are extremely complicated. I mean, there's so many parts. There's so many systems. There's so many. Just mechanically, they're so intricate. And once you get into it, you really, really enjoy working on them. You feel fulfilled. You feel accomplished when you're done. And everyone should try that. If you have it in you, if you have the time, if you have the means, if you have the right. But I think the vast majority of people just want to drive cars. After you're done with it, you just want to drive it. You don't want to have to keep working on it every weekend. Like, you want to work on another one. I have 4 of them now. So.
Yeah, it's addictive. It very much is.
It is.
Yeah,
addictive.
No, you definitely see it, and we see that in our customer base, right? Like, we have customers who are car people, right? Who are car people through and through, and fundamentally can work on their car and enjoy that experience, but. Like, this particular car is not one that they're interested in doing that in, or they want the experience of the conversion. But a lot of times we have people who are coming to us who are, I name the company Moment because I feel like there is a moment when people become a car person, right? And it's funny that you say that you weren't a car guy before, but like, you're in love with buses, right? Like, you became a car, right? Like, you became a car guy because of that.
Not only that, not just that. Now I'm starting to, like, appreciate all kinds of other cars. The 912, the 911. I thought those were ugly cars, and now I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, look at that shape. There's no better looking shape.
I agree with you. I had the exact same experience, and specifically, I'm not a big fan of that flat six sound, and so it was just one of those things. But I agree. Like, we named it that because I wanted people that, like, for me, it's like I just remember putting, cutting out pictures of, Lamborghinis and putting them on my, my locker door in high school, and whatever it is, these people see a car and they go, oh, I'm going to drive that someday, right? Or that's the car that I want, right? And
Yeah.
I think that that can sometimes come along with like the experience that you said, right? Which is they learn to work on the cars, they get an old one, they fix it up. It's this fulfilling kind of engaging experience. But a lot of people spend a lot of their life wishing they could own one of those cars, and looking at them and going, man, I don't think I could bite off all that, all that work. I don't, they're scared about it. Like our customer, the Mini you talked about, she's all adored Minis her entire life and was just dying to have one, but she knew that they were a pain to keep, running and dealing with it. And she had no interest in doing that. And so when we could give her a car that's, virtually maintenance free, and you just get in, you turn the key and it goes. Isn't that, I mean, that's what I love about our car. There's no like warming up. There's no like waiting for it to, to get up the temperature or anything like that. You just get in, turn the key and go. She loves it. She absolutely loves it. And so, giving those people that experience that they were never able to achieve or attain because they were scared of the work is part of it. But like you said, I think it's fulfilling too. So if you have the capability to do it and you have the interest, it's worth doing because it becomes a part of you. You really understand the car at a whole new level. And when you do a conversion like you have, that's a whole other level of understanding too, right? Like that's when you're
where the weaknesses are. You're like, wait a minute, like I know, for example, that my cooling system. By the way, these cars are so efficient, electric cars.
Yeah.
And just to give a little reference for the people that are listening that might not know, like regular gasoline cars have these giant, what is it? What's it called? When you put the water on, it's a
the radiator.
Radiator, and that's a heat exchanger. That's just to get rid of the extra heat.
Right.
That's all energy, right? That's our miles and miles of unused energy that you're just throwing out. You're just shoving it out into the world, right? Well, these cars are so efficient. I literally use a tiny little computer CPU cooling heat exchanger. It's just a tiny little miniature. But my system is so tiny that it does saturate after like 20 continuous minutes of going like uphill. So there's a hill up here where I would go to Joshua Tree to see the stars, and I know that like right up to that peak, my system is like hot, and it starts cutting back, and you're like, oh, and I'm looking at like 91, exactly at 91 or 90 degrees Celsius. It cuts back. That's where the AC Curtis. The Curtis controllers do have it, right? And so I like keep looking. I'm like, oh yes, I'm almost there. But it doesn't stop. It just actually protects itself.
It derates, right?
Cuts
exactly.
Back.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I tell you, you're right. That is something that I think about a lot. The efficiency is mind-boggling comparatively, and you think about just how inefficient. Here I live in Texas, right? So I'm endlessly pulling up right next to Ford F-250s with giant, 38-inch wheels and giant, like they put these ranch hand front bumpers on that weigh literally like another ton, like it's a ton of steel that is sitting on the front. And you look at that and you go, oh my God. Like if I had to get that truck down the road with batteries and electric, I mean, you'd need 200 kilowatt hours. It would take you 100 miles, right? It is amazing how cheap fuel has made us not care about these things, right? I mean, gasoline stores a tremendous amount of energy, and like you said, you can just burn it, and just the heat is just dissipate. Like it's just.
What aren't we using like 20-30% only?
It's something like that. I think 30 is like the top efficiency you can get.
That's a car that gets like 30 miles an hour, 30 miles a gallon. Yeah.
Right, and your motor in that bus is probably 85-90% efficient, right? Like, and it's just
I average 300 watt hours per mile.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, for a brick like that, too, it's amazing.
3,000 pounds too. So
yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, it is amazing how inefficient. I think I read it's hard to do apples to apples comparison, but a gallon of gasoline is something like 30 kilowatt hours, maybe more, 35 kilowatt hours.
I think I heard 33 kilowatt
30,
hours.
yeah, something there. Yeah, exactly, somewhere
hours.
in that. Like,
so if you really compare, I have 48 kilowatt hours on my bus here. So I have
gallon and a half of gas.
A gallon and a quarter, something like that. Yeah, of gasoline.
Exactly. It's just amazing, right? It is.
Yeah. That's what I drive around, and that's the equivalent. It's just, it's amazing that we're so short-sighted. We're just wasting all the gasoline.
I know.
But the thing is, there's so much of it, right? I'd say, I think we used to think that peak oil was a thing, but I think now there's evidence that maybe it's not a thing. That it is, but it's like way into the future. I think the Saudis have way more oil than they've ever.
You think they're holding? They got more.
They'd never let the world know that in reality. They were saying like, we have this much.
Look, we just found this over here.
So I think we'll be fine for the time being, but obviously there's other concerns like the green gases, and just our environment and all. And look, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. There's a ton of it. You should be smart about using your resources. You should just be wasting them.
And that's it, Jay. That's the thing that is mind-boggling. You think like doing conversions on cars really, it really crystallizes just how much energy can be wasted, right? And we get these people call us all the time for I have no idea what reason, but everybody wants to convert a truck, right? Or we get people want to do Hummer H1, like the original 7,000 pound car.
I want to do one of those.
Yeah, I know. And you sit there and you say, well, look, anything's possible, right? But I was like, you're fighting so much physics. It's just the physics is just against you at every turn. And like, you can do anything, but is that really what you want to do? What you want to spend your money on, right? Like, you need, like, let's talk about how much a 200 kilowatt hour battery pack is going to cost.
That's the exciting thing, right? They are coming down.
They are, but still, that kind of that price point is just adds to things, and then you got to find space to put them, right?
Space.
Yes.
It's still a 200 kilowatt hour battery. Yeah. It's still going to weight 1,500 pounds.
Yeah, easily. If you did Teslas, probably, they'd be about 1,500 pounds.
Well, I mean, they're about the most energy dense packs that you can still get, right?
They claim those Rivians, the Rivians, I think, are supposed to be volumetrically more dense, but I don't know that they're weight-wise more dense, though.
There's no getting around it. I think that's the beautiful thing about both of those companies, Tesla and Rivian, is that they're not banking on some space age future technology. It's batteries.
Right.
Lithium batteries. That's what I love. I understand it. I physically can hold one of those cells. I have a bunch of them. I use them in all my projects. So there's no magic there. Like, the only magic is that they're willing to do it. That's it, right? And so, I think the Model 3s those are the ticket. Have you played with those yet?
Yeah, I've driven one. I don't own one, but I've driven one. They're great.
Have you seen the battery modules?
Oh, you mean you're talking about the battery modules? No, because they don't lend themselves. They would work in your bus probably from a form factor standpoint, but for the cars that we do, man,
an H1, perfect.
Yeah, okay, that's true for sure. If you're gonna do an H1, maybe be able to do that. But
I want to do
in a Mini.
I think we're doing. Someone did. Down in San Diego, they did like an old truck, like a Ford, like from the 50s.
And they put them in the bed, right?
They put them right there inside the frame. They fit, right? Yeah, those are pretty good. And then the price, they were really low, but they're starting to come back up. Yeah. Because there's so many of those now. There's an industry popping up of changing.
Yeah, no, that is the compelling thing is there's just so many on the road. It's
so many.
Yeah, we're going to see those everywhere. It'd be very nice to be able to integrate them. And unfortunately, I feel like most of the smaller classic cars that we work on, it'd be really hard to do. Right?
Even these buses, we have to do a lot of work. You have to get rid of braces. Yeah. And then you have to reinforce, make boxes, and then weld stuff. Yeah. So now you're changing and modifying the chassis. Of it, but I mean, slightly modifying. It's not. You can always change it back or whatever. But I feel like a lot of people are not willing to do that on classic cars. Where do you land on that?
Well, so we try to do no harm, right? Like our goal is to not, completely, restructure the car. We want to keep things as original as possible. It doesn't, you're always going to have to be drilling holes, and you're going to have to be doing things, and we'll clean the car up if there's brackets that we're not using anymore. We'll clean that up. But yeah, our fundamental goal is to not hack the car apart. And an interesting thing that you talk about with those Model 3 battery modules. I've only just looked a little bit at the specs of them, but one of the beauties of the Model S is that they're all the same size, and they all have a given nominal voltage and stuff like that. So you can Lego brick them together to do lower voltage systems pretty easy. Unfortunately, with the Model S, they're in kind of weird voltage numbers, so that you basically are restricted to 400 volt systems and using the entire pack, right? I mean,
you mean the other way, right? You mean Model S are more modular. Model
yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, sorry.
Ones.
Did I say sorry?
Yeah,
Model 3s are bigger and not in very good.
They come in 23S
right?
and 25S.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
and
what you get.
It doesn't match up well with the lower voltage systems like the AC, 50.
Well, I wanted to run the 25S because I'm running 30S.
Yeah.
On my system, and it's like, it's only 5 cells. I'm like, can I do it? So you definitely don't hit the efficiency of that system, right? That's like, I think it's already like 80 kilowatt system, but you never get 80. You get more like 50 kilowatts. But if you're running 5 cells less, you might be capped somewhere like at 45 or something. You're giving up something. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it's all about those, those basically that when that voltage drops, you're hitting, you're basically the base RPM of that motor drops, because that's all the back EMF that is forcing you into field weakening, right? And so as that voltage drops down, the peak in the torque curve drops down in the RPM range, and so it really does affect the performance of the vehico too.
It makes a difference. I can feel it. I can feel it when my battery's low.
Well, you probably did it. Like, did you have LiFePO batteries in it before, or did you always?
I did. In fact, for a while I had both of them.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that story.
One of the nice things about the LiFePO 4 batteries is that they have that flat discharge curve, right? So they're not linearly going down, and so your performance pretty much stays the same throughout the discharge, right? But with these, with the more modern lithium chemistries, right, you get that linear discharge, and there's a lot of benefits to it. I'm not, but it is one of those things where as you discharge, you're actually feeling that in the performance of the motor.
Yeah, and I think the reason, for those of you who don't know, the reason is because a lot of these equipment, in this case the controllers, they have a cap in the amperage that they can put out, right? And so the same amount of amps, if you're capped at 400 amps or 600 amps, in my case, my controller's hacked to 750.
Ooh,
but don't say that to anyone.
No, I was going to say.
Then the same 700 amps at 130 volts is not the same that 700 amps at 90 volts. There's a huge difference in power that happens at those two different voltages. So that's why it suffers. Even the equipment can push the same amount of amperage. It's not the same amount of power that's going to the motor, right? So that's a hack that we did a long time ago. But it wasn't open to the public, so we have just a few of us got it or whatever. They felt that it was safe, and it's good. I haven't blown a controller yet, so.
Right, you just need to get a bigger radiator for your cooler.
Yeah,
you're putting those extra amps through, man. You're gonna.
Yeah, but you know what? Here's the thing about this. Once you do the conversions, you learn a lot of things about cars. Like you learned what it takes to move 2,000 pounds of steel around, right? Or 3,000 pounds of steel around. And you realize that going down the road, you only need like 20 horsepower. Like you don't need that much. It's just for the takeoffs, right? And in fact, that's what we started with the Volkswagens. He had 30 horsepower. They had a 25 horsepower motor. Ridiculous. And then they had a 30, 40. They went to 50, I think. That's about it, right? And so that's why you have all these little gears. You have to like get in that bandwidth,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
You're shifting
Yeah.
three gears by the time you're doing 30, you know,
Yeah.
kind of thing. But with the electric motors, you don't need that. But you still need. I mean, you kind of do still need that, right? If you have like my motor and the systems that you're installing. You're doing some Hyper 9s.
We're doing mostly
now, right?
Hyper 9s now. We've done the ACs though before. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
And the Hyper 9s have a tiny bit more power, right? Is that
a little bit? Yeah, I mean, they're interesting, right? They're more efficient because of their permanent magnet motors and their permanent magnet synchronous motor. So, I mean, I think the simplest way to think about it is like in an induction motor, you're creating all the magnetic field with current. Yeah. And when you add in permanent magnets, you know part of the movement of that motor is being done by these magnets, right? So it helps with the efficiency. You don't need to run as high current. You don't need to, the motors are essentially more efficient, and that's why you can see that those motors are similar size to the motors that that we were using, them like the AC50 or what have you.
But they're lighter though.
They put out a lot more. They put out a lot more power.
More torque.
So,
right?
Yeah, exactly. But also if you look at the horsepower curve, because of that, right? So the torque is high, and then you get out into the range. The nice thing about those permanent magnet motors is that the torque doesn't fall off as quickly, right? And that's, when you go into field weakening, essentially it doesn't have to reduce the current as much, and so your torque curve kind of slopes down much more gradually, which means your horsepower curve peaks later and at a higher point, for the
mimics a little bit more on the gasoline engines.
Yeah, it does, and it feels a lot more like that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, that's cool.
Like
we're installing one of those right now, our first one on a bay window. Great. But all of my systems, I mean, my system that I have there, it's a AC50. And those are tested. Like, it's crazy. That thing's been driving me around for 7 years.
Yeah. They're war horses for sure.
Yeah,
but even right? You get it above 4,000 RPM and it kind of goes.
Yeah.
you got nothing left there, right? So back to your point about shifting, it's like it's really, you do still need to get it, kind of keep it in its power band, even though you've got 4 times the amount of stock, torque that you're the original gas. Right?
But maybe you need to shift 2 gears instead of 4.
Totally.
Because you have more torque at the lower,
a lot easier,
lower end. But you kind of learn that cars don't need that much power. You just need 50 horsepower, really.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. For something like this, I mean, you're not gonna get a race car.
No.
But it's enough to get you going, and to just drive around, and which is very cool. What's some of the new projects that you have going on right now?
So we are doing a bunch of things. We actually we just finished up that Speedster replica, which was nice.
You guys did a Speedster.
Yeah, and they're replicas. Obviously, you wouldn't take a $300,000 car and do this to it. There is some point that we consider it sacrilege, right? Even.
Yes.
But
well, and what's the deal with those? They're rare. They're not a lot of them, and whatever survived, it's just. Way too expensive. It's too valuable as a collector.
They run in that kind of $300,000 to $400,000 range, right? And so, not only would you be very hesitant to do a conversion on it, you'd probably get hunted down by all the Porsche files.
Yes, the Porsche people, fans
are very adamant. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Okay. But you can.
Yeah, these are just replicas, and the replicas are great, right? They're fiberglass body. They're to 99.9% of the public, they are indistinguishable. I mean, this car is beautiful. It's brand new. It's from a company called Vintage Motor Cars in LA, and it is gorgeous. I mean, this is a car where you pull up. I literally pulled up to a stoplight, and there was it was a patio, people eating out on it, and literally 3 people reached into their purses and started taking pictures of it, right? Like it's that car is iconic. They have no idea that it's
a convertible,
it's a replica. Yeah, they are. That's a Speedster, and it has like a little like sort of half-assed little top that you can put. It's basically to get you, if you get caught in the rain, you put it up and you get home and you're not going to be totally soaked. But it's really meant to be driven as an open road.
But there's a hard top too, right? They did make
So
some hardtops.
they do make 356 coupes for sure, and they do make replica coupes. So this same company makes replica coupes. But anyway, that's fun and very repeatable, which we like. So this is something where somebody can just just do it, order up the car, whatever color, whatever interior you want, and just go. And we've got a solution with 5 modules or solution with 7 modules, and you pretty much just, and it flies. It absolutely flies. I mean, the car, we have to put it on the scales after the conversion, but normally with the Volkswagen engine, they're 1,900 pounds, right? So I mean, this thing just, I mean it, and we set up the gearbox to really take advantage of that motor. And it.
What do you do to the gearbox?
So we can do kind of 2 things. One, we kept the 3.88 diff, and then we actually just worked with the builder to get taller ratios, right? Because you just, like you said, the cars are geared normally for very low torque engines, and so they don't take advantage of it as much. So we had taller gear ratios on up. The other thing you can do is you can actually go down to, I think, a 344 diff and keep some of the same gears, stock gears, and then it ends up kind of being about the same. But what I love is, this part of the reason we do this is it's like, I really love shifting. I really love engaging with the car, especially a car like that, right? And this is a car where first gear, normally, if we do a conversion and we don't do any changes to the gearbox, if that car was built, for a little 4-cylinder engine, usually first gear is useless, right? You just can't do anything with it. But we're able to, to do this. So first gear it's like that Tesla snap, like it's wham, it's just, takes you off guard, and then boom, you grab second, and second just goes and goes and goes, and then third and fourth, and on the highway, 60, 70 miles an hour, you're turning 2,800 RPM, maybe 3,000. So it's right in there, and you've got all that torque available to you at any time. It's great, right? So I really like that, and that's a great little package that we can kind of repeat. And that same company makes Spider replicas, so 550 Spiders. Yeah, the old James Dean.
The James Dean car,
the little bastard, right? Exactly. So we're doing similar to that. So that's a fun project, and to be able to just say, hey, either way you want to go, we have a conversion for you. So those are fun.
And those are cool because you don't have to find one and restore it. The restoration process is like, people don't get it.
They don't.
It's a thing on its own. It takes years. Some people take 10 years restoring a vehicle. If you want to do it right.
They do, and we get this a lot. I think there's a mentality of people like, oh, electric, that sounds great. I'll just find this junky car that has a bad engine, and then I'll convert it. And you're like, okay, first of all, the cost of conversion is high. So in the end, you're going to want to drive something around that you want to be impressive and people proud of, right? And, But second of all, like, just if you imagine that you're going to also fix it up, just investigating and looking at, like, the restoration costs are insane, especially like paint. People do this all the time. They go, well, this is a great car, all it needs is paint. And you go, oh, okay. Okay, like, that's a $20,000 deal, right? Exactly. There's no all it needs is paint, right? That's a whole to do it right. It's not a Mako, $1,500 job. It's a big deal. So.
It's not.
Yeah,
it's never just paint. It's paint and metal and
exactly. When we did it on that Porsche, we did a repaint on that, and it looked beautiful. And the funny thing is, you do these restorations, you're going through the car at first, and you're getting it prepped for paint. So you're taking off all the trim, you're taking off all the parts and pieces, and you send it off to the painter, and then it comes back. It's beautiful. I mean, it is to see a body that has been stripped completely and is just perfectly painted. It comes back, it's this most magical thing, and you go, oh, I'm so excited to kind of put the car back together. And then you take that piece of trim, that headlight ring, or that that door handle that you thought was great when you pulled it off the car, and you go to put it back on the freshly painted car, and all of a sudden you see all the pitting and all the stuff, and you go, oh, this looks like crap, I need to get that. And then $10,000 later of replacing all the trim bar. Exactly. It's just, especially on a car like a Porsche where it's 10 times the price that it should be. So we just, that process of restoration, not only is it costly, but it's time consuming too, right? You sit there and go, like you said, 10, it can be 5 years, 2 years, 10 years, whatever it is.
There's a ton of little parts, and there's, you can't just go to Porsche store and order them. Like, you literally have to hunt for them. Like,
I know. I have a stack of like Pelican parts receipts for every, and it's right. You're like, oh, I have to put this piece on the dashboard, and it turns out there's these 6 screws that you need, and I've only got 4 of them. I need to figure out where the other ones are. So, but yeah, your point was the replicas are great. You call them up.
Order it.
You got, I want a blue with a tan interior, these wheels, boom, done.
What do those run?
So they're somewhere in the mid 30s for a car without an engine.
Yeah,
not bad, right?
Great.
And then you can do the conversion, and
I literally spent 30 just piecing that thing up there.
Yeah, I know.
Like, just getting parts, like a door, a trim, a thing, and, an old seat. $30,000, yeah, and you can get a car that's fully done, painted, a roller basically, right? For that,
No, I'm constantly having that conversation where people will send me like, what do you think of this one? And you go, look, that seems like a good deal because it's only $15,000, but here's one for 25 that has all the paint done and everything like that. There's no way to take that $15,000 car and turn it into that one for $10,000. Like, it's going to cost you $25,000 to get it in the same condition as that. The restoration, unless it's a numbers matching Ferrari or something like that, the restoration cost will always far exceed the value of the car, right? And so let somebody else sink that money into restoring it. And then,
I learned that, right? I spent $32,000 on that one, right? Just to get it to this point. This is not restored. This is like on primer.
Right.
The metal's all wavy all over the place.
Right? Exactly.
It's got all the parts. Everything works on it. It's got all the latches. So then, and I picked it up for $5,000, right? But evenally put $30,000. So then, the next bus, I'm searching for my next bus, and a $25,000 bus comes up, and it's to this point already. Not only to this point, it's to this point, but it's got an engine at like a 22, like a 2.2 liter or something, like. And it's running. It's like, and I'm like, well, that's a deal here.
Right, $10,000 less than
$10,000, and I have like literally like $5,000 of stuff that I can sell because I don't need it. I don't need that engine, right? And I don't need that transmission. I usually do. I'm getting into the habit of changing the transmissions from swing axle, which is the early version of these cars, to the IRS systems, right? So I have that has a swing axle that is perfect working order. It's got the freeway flyer thing, all the things that people want. I'm like, that's at least $5,000 that I can take off the price of that car. So you learn that. You're like, what seems cheap is a lot of the times is more expensive, and what seems expensive is a lot of times cheaper. So you have to do that.
We are always telling customers, go buy the best car that you can get, because there's always going to be, even on top of that, right? You can go buy a $25,000 bus, $30,000 bus. There's going to be a set of things you're going to want to change, aesthetic things or whatever you're going to want to, and so then you get to spend that extra money on these things that matter to you, right? These smaller things, and especially as we're talking about, you're capable of doing all this work. A lot of our customers are not, right? And so to them, it might be fun to go pick out some new interior bits or something like that, and they might turn a wrench on the weekend, but they're not having to do, restoration work.
Restoration, you got to be committed. You got to it's not an easy thing to do, and it's not cheap.
It isn't.
And you need, like, painting is a thing that I never gotten into, and it's still a thing. I haven't painted a car yet, right? All my cars are like, I have 3 buses right now that are rolling around in primer. And that's cool. I don't care. Cool. But it isn't cool because people don't appreciate them. Like, literally, people will look at, like, literally, I have my neighbors here. Like, that's that's an S-Class Mercedes, whatever.
Right.
He every day, he's never told me anything, but he probably looks and he goes like, oh, this piece of junk sitting right up next to my expensive car.
My beautiful S-Class.
Yes. I'm like, he probably doesn't realize. Oh, actually, you know what? That's not right. He did bring his friend the other day. And his friend was telling him, because he was in a balcony, and he's telling me, hey, man, your buses, man, how much are those in? And I'm like, those go for like $100,000 on a weekly basis on auctions, So this guy now knows. But every time I would look at him, I would be like, this guy's probably thinking that my junky bus is sitting right next to his, not realizing that my bus is probably worth the same as his. It's like
he doesn't quite get it. No, it is.
So that's the thing. I love driving these cars ratty, but you want to eventually I want to
Yeah.
make it beautiful so that other people can appreciate them, right? Like
Yeah.
especially since
Yeah.
I'm always like kind of preaching
Yeah.
the electric thing, that's early adopters like us. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Uh, and so a lot of people that are spending a lot of time and a lot of money on these classic cars, they end up spending a lot of time talking to people about
Yeah.
making them electric because that's the first thing that comes up. They're like, "What is this car?
Yeah.
How come it doesn't make any noise?"
Yeah. 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 No, I get it. I mean, it's funny. You're talking about like we did this, it's a 82 Toyota Hilux 4-door from Australia. So the
Oh
Hilux
yes,
is,
okay,
yeah, the Hilux is the Toyota truck, right?
yeah.
Outside of the U.S. In the U.S., they didn't even give it a name. They were like, it's a truck. Outside, they call it the Hilux. And in Australia, they made these 4-doors. I mean, so in the 80s, it's a 4-door truck, and it's super cool. And my customer got it. There's probably 5 of them in the U.S. There's hardly any, and they were diesel, and they were big. There's issues with them. But that truck, we had it in front of the shop before we could work on it, and it's in rough shape. But you would have thought I parked the Lamborghini, out there. People
What?
would stop by and ask about that truck every single day. Every single day, somebody would pull in, come up, knock on the door, and they'd say, "Hey, is that for sale?" They loved it because it's super unique, and the Toyota guys just go into it. But we spent a lot of time and a lot of energy making the drivetrain work as well as we did, and we got the whole everything looks great when you open the hood, but it's in rough shape. But thankfully, the owner is going to be doing a full restoration, and so we could take our stuff out, and it's going back 80s. It's this great like olivey dark green. It's going to have like these brown stripes on it it's just right out of the brochure with the white Toyota wheels. It's going to look amazing. And that's going to be one of those cars where it's like, people who get it are going to be like, "Oh, this is incredible." And people who don't get
Yeah.
it are just going to shake their heads.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Yeah. So you guys are getting everything, huh? Getting the.
Trying to. I mean, yeah, that's we look at it like, again, back to the whole point of moment. Like the point is, I want to be able to convert whatever your dream car is, right? And so we spent a lot of time trying to do as many different platforms and as many different, like you said, we had this kind of like spectrum of all of these cars, right? And that's the goal, right? Like, I don't want to say, if somebody comes up to me and go, "Oh, I want my dream car," I don't want to say, "Well, as long as it's one of these."
As long as it's a Volkswagen or a Volkswagen.
Right, exactly, right. Like, I'd love to be able to do it for just about anything within reason. There's always
Yeah.
So a lot of what we spent time on doing is building kind of the modular motor systems and modular battery systems to be able to just do it, so that when we get a new car, we can just apply the configuration that makes most sense, spend a little bit of time adapting it to that drivetrain, and then have a very repeatable thing. It's not like, "Oh, in this car we use this motor, and in this car we use these other motors, and in this," right? Like, it's something that can be consistent, maintainable, well thought out, and then aesthetically pleasing, right? So that's kind of been our approach, and that means that we end up having a lot of different cars in there. We're one that I'm really excited about. We're doing it's a 67 Mercedes SL 250, the Pagoda Mercedes. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're
SL 250.
Yeah, it's the Pagoda. So it's not the Gull Wing era. It's the one after that, and they call them the Pagodas because they have this kind of slightly concave roof line. They're really just beautiful cars, right? You just imagine, somebody driving with their silk scarf behind. It's just absolutely gorgeous, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of those cars where like that's the like, and we got it here, and sure enough, I mean, it's just leaking oil everywhere. It had made no power. We pulled that engine out. This is a 2.5 liter 6-cylinder. I swear it weighs 500 pounds. It is like a tank engine, and it just makes 125 horsepower. We take it out, and you go, "Wow, this is going to be an amazing car when it's done." And
yeah. So you mostly do engineering.
Yeah, we do a lot of engineering.
Yeah.
And that is I think we're not in it to make product per se, right? Like we're really, I think that there's kind of different ways to approach this industry. Some is to DIY, sell the kits, sell the parts, let people do this in their garage, and I think that's fantastic. What I love is the finished product, right? I love when our team pulls together, delivers a car, and it's we just love it. We love to we've thought through every little piece of it, and to be able to do that, like I said, you can't just hack through it with with a stick welder and
you can.
You can.
I'm doing it back here.
But let's just say it helps when you have some really well thought out engineered parts. And our engineer is actually my old college roommate. He's he's a mechanical engineer, and he's great at this, and we're able to collaborate. In fact, all day today I was on various Zooms and Slacks with him, working on new refining parts for the cars, and really thinking about, well, how will this work, not just in this car, but how will it work in that car and that car and that car, and if we can make a system that is easily adapted to all those, then we've hit on something. We're not perfect, we're trying, but we're really trying to be able to without too much effort apply these things over and over again, and just that lets us be able to take a variety of cars, right? And
so because every car is different, and that's the problem. The problem is that people think is like, can't we just buy the parts and then put it together? And it's like, no, they don't exist. No one's done this before.
Exactly.
I mean, people have done it, but they're not sharing their designs. They did what you said that you can't do.
Right.
You went and hacked some piece of metal and welded it in, but it's a one-off thing. You know what I mean? Like it's not like they made it available to anyone. But you have to be smart and do that, right? So you have obviously the BWs are very popular second version because it's really easy. All you need is an adapter plate.
Right.
And that's essentially it. Like you just need some boxes, and like you run around without boxes like me for years. If you're
crazy.
If you're crazy like me, you could do it. But there are other cars that require quite a bit of engineering. Now, like some of those cars that you're talking about require a motor that is in line with the drive shafts and right, and
we spent a lot of time trying to do that, right? I mean, really, that's where all of the modular systems that we were talking about, came from. It's like, how are we able to do this repeatedly? Can we swap out, how do we make it so that just these motor mounts swap in and out depending on the chassis, and just this adapter swaps in and out depending on the transmission that we're making to, and be able to do that, and so that we can have a lot of stock parts, and then we can have a set of things that are unique to the car, right? How do we have the same, like you said, the battery boxes, right? Like, well, we have a 2 module, a 3 module, a 4 module, a 5 module, so that depending on the car, we might only be able to fit 2 in the engine bay, and we have to put the rest in the trunk, or maybe in this other car we can fit 3, and then we're not constantly having to kind of rebuild and redo and make new enclosures and make new boxes and do that. We can just say, we got this system. Let's make the changes that we need to for this particular car, but that's it.
Okay.
Like back to that, and I mean, I think the thing that's really fascinating about the world that we live in, Jake, right now, it's amazing how. So I talked about my engineer. He lives in Bend, Oregon, right? So he's not even here, but we can get in a car and we can take measurements. My guys here in the shop will take measurements. They'll come up with the specs necessary. Jeff, my engineer, will be in in Bend, and he'll get all that, and he'll be able to pull it into his CAD model. He'll be able to we'll be able to collaborate and share and test everything out and make sure everything looks good, and we'll be able to send it to China to a machine shop, and then 2 weeks later we get a part and it fits perfectly. And I'm not talking about like, oh, it sort of fits. It's like it fits perfectly, and the tolerances are to 1,000th of an inch, and everything is balanced, and the amount of press required for that bearing to fit in is perfect. Like that kind of thing, I feel like 10 years ago it just wasn't possible, right? Like you couldn't turn things around that quickly and that easily and make these parts that are that precise and that well manufactured and that, well designed in that kind of time frame. It's kind of amazing, and that's what it takes to do all these different cars, is to be able to do that. But once you have that capability to do that, like, the world is your oyster. Like, like, bring it on, right? Like, let's try a new, what car can we do now, right? Like, we can just adapt that particular vehicle with that same kind of technology. So I think it is engineering. It's a lot of engineering.
So are you offering like those products, or you're offering just as a service, like right now?
So just at this point, we built these to make our job easier, right?
Yeah.
And there is a huge leap between selling, between making something for yourself, right? Even if it is repeatable and well engineered and whatever, and then selling it to somebody and supporting those people in the field, right? And we get that question a lot, like, hey, can I buy this from you? And my answer is no, right? Like, at this point, really what we're trying to do is use all of this to be able to deliver, a high quality finished, full product. And that for us is repeatable and safe and is well thought out and well engineered and maintainable. But I guess there's a potential future where we sell these things as parts and pieces, but that's not really our goal at this point.
Oh, I see. Yeah, because there are shops that are opposite. They don't want to do the conversions. Right. They want to just sell you the parts, the kits and stuff, and then
Right.
Yeah. And I guess I kind of understand both sides of that market. It kind of works, right? There are people that want to do it themselves because it's such a thing. It's such an expense. It's expensive thing to pay a shop to do it. That they're like, can I just do it myself? Can I? Yeah, people will buy parts like from EV West, right? And they will sit on them for years, and then eventually they'll be like, hey, it's like, and we know because you'll get like a question about a motor that we're like, what about that motor?
We don't even sell that
motor anymore. Like, literally, it's 4 years ago, stopped selling that motor, And they're just getting around to. So there's quite a bit of that happens. I know there's stuff that I picked up, like where people buy it and then they put it on the car, then they drive around, and then they didn't do such a good job, like installing the batteries or something, and then they breaks. And then a few years later, they're like, but I lost interest, so then they're selling it for like nothing. Right. I picked up systems for like $1,000, and it's like full systems. You're like, what? Yes, I'll take them in.
No, I mean, it's hard, right? Like I hear it. Like, I feel like I'm most happy and fulfilled when we can deliver the car, right? Like the dream, right? The person wants, right? Like even the person that's buying the kit, yes, they want the fulfillment of the process too. But like you said, sometimes they'll sit on it and what have you. But like in the end, the whole thing that's making them do it all is because they imagine themselves behind the wheel driving this dream car of theirs, right? And to me, that's the best, right? Like I get texts with the photos of the notes that people are leaving on the windows of our customers' car. That's what motivates me. Like, it's so thrilling to hear that, right? And it's also thrilling to see that somebody has taken your parts and built something out of it. I totally get that. It's just, I think that's kind of not the approach
that you want to take.
We're taking with this. I think that's kind of our goal.
Well, that's cool. So what is the process? Like, let's say that I wanted a 1964 Mustang.
Yeah, sure.
Convertible, right? So I come to you and I say, hey, I want this car. What do you tell the customer?
So that's a great question, because sometimes people have the car, right? In fact, we had a guy with a 66 that came to us, and he's very excited about doing that. And it's a car that he's owned for many, many years. To him, it was a 6-cylinder car. It was never the powerful, and he saw an opportunity to make it something great and enjoyable. So there's definitely people who have the car. They have their dad's old car or whatever it is, or they're car collectors and they have one that they want to devote to this. But a lot of times people come to us who, like I said, they always wanted one. They've always just,
I want a DeLorean.
Yeah, exactly. Or I want a Mini, or I want a, or that SL. The woman who wanted that SL, she knew she wanted that car. And we spent time, and we actually worked with a great dealer in Colorado to locate one. And then we will be along for that ride and help them evaluate a particular car. So one of the great things, it's a 250 SL, it's not a 280, right? Don't spend the extra money to get the bigger engine when you're going to take it out anyway, right? Yes. So things like that, and looking.
The only difference is a batch at the end of the day, right?
Exactly, right? Exactly. Yeah. And we can buy those. That's what we do. So we'll help them find the right car and help them with evaluating cars to make sure that we're starting with a good, solid platform. But the thing that I love about that is when that car gets delivered here, right? And the new owner so excited that it's arriving, and she says, "I want to come see it." I said, "Absolutely, I'll put it out front. We'll be here at the shop." And I was inside the shop, and I knew she was going to be coming by soon. And all of a sudden, I heard literally squealing, just delight, screaming. She's just so excited. She pulls up next, she jumps out of her car. She's running around this Mercedes, and she's going, "Oh my God, I love it. I love it. I love it." She absolutely loved it. Right. And so that was, to me, you got to start there. That's the whole point of this, right? You want people to be just absolutely enthralled and thrilled with what they're doing. And then, they took it for the weekend to drive it and to get experience with it. And she called me on Sunday and she said, "Okay," she's like, "I can't tell you. I just go out into the garage and just look at this car. I love it so much." And she goes, "And it stunk up the garage and it's leaking a bunch of oil." She goes, "So we cannot wait for you to convert it." Right? It's perfect, right? She goes, "So this is it, right? Dream car, but not the dream experience." And she's delighted with that, right? So anyway, then we take the car into the shop and we do the engineering required, and then we do all the fabrication and the manufacturing and the installation and deliver it to them. But something that matters, and this, right, Joe? You're talking about it as a DIYer, but that journey from starting, like when you got your bus for the first time for 5K, you were just probably enamored with it, and then you started making your list of all things you want to do to it, and you started getting all your parts together, and like you said, you were sourcing around trying to find used parts that somebody would get a deal on, what have you. And that whole process is the journey, right? It was what you wanted to do. And you took that journey throughout, however long it took you to do the original one. I saw you do the second one super fast though, so I know it can go fast. But I think but that journey was important to you, right? But I feel like somebody who's having this done for them doesn't necessarily get to see that journey. And so something that's important to us is making that available to them. So we're making private blogs for each one. Each car gets a build blog, and they get to see every week, every day, every month the progress that's being made, and explaining everything to them so they can see the process. And it's almost like it's a virtual coffee table book when you're done. Say, hey, and they like I meet people all the time. Like, "Oh, I want to," the owner will tell me that, their cousin's in town, and the cousin will come by and say, "Oh, I followed the whole build," because, they were just part of the family, part of the group that was watching that experience. So that process, I think, is important. It's, maybe you're not doing it yourself, but watching how somebody does it and watching the care and the time and the energy that went into your conversion, I think it's important, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, because I guess there might be sometimes that you have to justify the amount, because people don't realize. Again, it's
they don't.
I even forget how much work it was to do the thing, right? Yep. And that's doing it a second time around. I'm like, holy crap! I forgot that it was so much work. And so if a customer's paying, I'm sure they're paying a lot of money. These are not cheap projects, right? These are not inexpensive projects because of the amount of engineering, the amount of time that goes in there, the amount of talent that requires. You can't just have anyone work on these things. You have to have a very specific skill set, right? You have to be mechanically inclined, then you got to be into computers, then you got to be into just, you got to have work ethic. It's a thing, finding techs. Are you guys finding trouble finding technicians to work on these?
No, I mean, we're a small shop, right? And so it's not like I'm trying to hire 10 of these people, and we, we're not cranking out, dozens and dozens of vehicles a year yet or anything like that. But it is a challenge to find the right mixture of skills, right? Because as you said, and it's really important, right? This is a combination, right? Like there are so many different skill sets that matter. And if I look at, our cars from end to end, and there are plenty of people that know how to wrench on a car, and they know how to pull an engine, put something in, connect the fuel lines, do that kind of stuff. And then there's a set of people that know how to hand fabricate something. They go, oh, I need to make a bracket. They cut it out and they grind it down, and they can weld it and they can put it in and they can do it. I used to be in the hot rod scene, and the hot rod scene is just full of guys who are just super skillful metal workers. But they literally are doing it with patterns, right? They make a paper pattern. They say, okay, when I want to attach this here, it's going to look like this. And then they hand cut it out and hand form it. And it looks beautiful, but it's not something that is a production oriented stuff. And so I think the skill sets that we're constantly looking for is somebody who can embrace that kind of, these are old cars, right? You got to be able to just how much time we spend working on brakes is ridiculous, right? You're just you got to be willing to get into the gunk and into the dirt of it and do typical, automotive work. At the same time, you also be able to have to sit there and say, okay, we need to make a panel that fits here. We need to make a bracket that connects this or what have you, and not think, well, okay, I'm going to just grab some steel and make it happen. It's like, hey, can I translate my idea into something? And so we have some guys that'll draw it out, and then we'll take it and turn that into a CAD representation. Some of them are actually learning enough CAD where they can do that, and they can say, hey, here, I designed this. And then we'll kind of get it to the finished format. Well, my engineer will do a lot of this, and then we can send that file over to the water jet place, and then all of a sudden a perfect water jet piece of steel comes back, and my fabricator can weld it up, and it's perfect because it was dimensionally perfect in the drawing and what have you. And maybe we put it in the car and we realized, oh, we were a little off there. Okay, let's not just hack it out. Let's go back to the CAD and say, look, we were an eighth of an inch off here, and we need to move this, change the angles, do that, adjust the CAD, send the file to the water jetter, again, get it back, and then and do it. And then once we've got it to the point where it actually works, boom, that goes in the library, right? That's great. That's the motor mount for an Alfa Romeo GTV from 1973. Done, right? Next time we get one of those, pull it off the shelf, and it's not just the adapter like you're talking about. It's a lot more involved when you're dealing with different cars. It's the motor mounts, it's the brackets that hold the battery boxes, it's the flywheel coupler, it's all sorts of things, right? And so we have for each car this kind of library of parts that we've made, and it's all through that process. And so you're talking about finding the right talent, that is not typical, right? That's not what somebody at a dealership, who's doing, repair work is doing. It's not what an old school hot rodder is doing. It's not, and sometimes it's not even what a new school hot rodder is doing, right? And so really we do a lot of kind of adapting and training people to be able to work in this environment. And so I haven't really found not necessarily the surefire, combination of skills, but that willingness to embrace that is important. Right? So.
Yeah, it's a new breed of people, of car people.
I think fundamentally it's hot rodding to me, right? It's the mentality is still a hot rod mentality, right?
Yeah, it's just we're at the forefront, and it's gonna take a while for these guys to be enough of them to be like, I'll get a guy from over here. Right. Yeah, it's definitely it's so weird. You either come from computers or you come from a car background. It's like those two people are the ones that are interested enough to work, and one has to learn the other side of the skill set, and then the other ones have to learn the opposite.
Exactly. But fundamentally, that was my background. I was a software guy. Loved cars and loved working on cars, right? And the two together really, that's what it is. And that's the world that we live in now, right?
Because we're making a little bit more computer, a little bit less, mechanical things.
Exactly.
But that's okay, because you can still they still enjoy them. I enjoy driving my cars, and all your customers. So what's in the future? When are you gonna start doing the? Are you getting into like the big high performance stuff? By the way, I just want to preface this by saying that just yesterday, the EV West team, they just broke the record, land speed record on a modified. Well, it's a from the ground up built car, but it's a modified Model S powertrain. They basically just changed the gearing on that engine and they ran it. I haven't talked to them, but I think they ran it like at half power.
Yeah, they were saying that, and I think well, at least the first pass they did 211, right? I think
218.
Oh, really? This today was 218.
Is that today?
I think so. 3 hours ago.
3 hours ago,
Wow.
218, and I guess that's it's the record.
I'm super impressed with that team. Like that, incredible stuff. Michael and those guys are just doing amazing. Things. It is. It was really fun to watch them and how quickly they pulled that together too.
Yeah, that car wasn't put together.
Amazing and terrifying, Jay. Could you imagine getting in a car that was
what's so weird?
Yesterday?
I asked them. I go, hey, when are you guys gonna test it? And they're like,
right.
The first time that we go for to qualify.
Well, with those kinds of cars, there's no real way to test it, right? How are you going to test it?
How are you going to test it? You can't test. You can't just go down the street here at 200 miles an hour, like literally.
No.
But so the exciting thing about this industry or this emerging market or however you want to call this scene, right, is the fact that these motors now there's so many of them.
Yeah.
You can pick them up really cheap, and these are high performance motors. These are. Yeah. Not what we've been installing in our cars here. These are motors that are 3 times, 4 times bigger, not physically, in power. And now there's been several people that hack them, so now they're available for us DIY people to build crazy things with them.
Right, crazy things.
Crazy, dangerous projects with them, right? Enough to break power, land speed records. So do you have that in mind? Will you work on something crazy coming up, or
So I wouldn't say crazy. So I guess it's kind of two questions, right? Will we do crazy things? Sure, we'll do crazy things. We're not motorsport motivated fundamentally. We're more street use car motivated.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean we wouldn't make a higher
We all love going fast.
Right.
I mean, some of us love it more than others, right?
Exactly.
I like cruising, but
exactly.
I enjoy going around a lap and on a track. I mean, that's exhilarating.
Exactly. Yeah, it's super exhilarating. We don't have like I said, we don't have a motorsport focus, but by all means, that's potential, down the line to look at. As far as the Tesla motors and kind of repurposing them, I think we're certainly not against it, and would love to do it for the right car. And I think that part of the challenge with modern, commercial electric car drivetrains is when you have these high RPM, motors, it requires that they're essentially mated up to a very, high tolerance gearbox, right? And so that's why you see these architectures with the whole drive unit in the rear of the car, the whole drive unit in the front of the car. And that works. It lends itself well to certain types of vehicles, your bus, Volkswagens, rear engine, rear wheel drive vehicles. It's kind of perfect for. It is a much bigger challenge to put them into cars that were originally front engine, rear wheel drive, or what have you. And so I think really for us, it's going to depend on having the right car for it to apply for, and the right customer, right? Like a lot of our customers are, we're going to do a couple 911s coming up, and the customers are adamant about keeping that gearbox and driving it the way that they, that they love that car, right? And so that doesn't lend itself well to, replacing it with a Tesla drive unit. But there's a ton of people who love that idea too, and so I'm sure we will get into that at some point. But like I said, it is really well suited to certain vehicles and not as much to others. And people are doing crazy things with them. There's really interesting stuff with those.
They're doing the transverse thing. Did you see that?
Yes.
So
Like electric classic cars, you're talking about the where they put it underneath the defenders, which is
yeah,
really cool.
and they're going
Yes.
forward. Okay, and then Michael also re-engineered that whole thing where
Yeah.
he's having whatever the thing for a
They
drive
changed the
shaft
gear
coming
ratios,
out.
right? Exactly. Yeah. Oh, yes. No, I know what you're talking about. They're gonna do that. Yeah. I mean, all those things are amazing. I get a
Yeah.
little wondering, when you're taking a drive unit and you're modifying it so extensively, and
Yeah.
then you're going and put it into a customer car, and
Yeah,
and then be
it's
on the hook to support it and be that kind of thing. Those are a little bit, I
yeah,
really want to make sure, and I'd love the idea of working with this, with a supplier, somebody who's who's
yeah.
able to do those things and has really put the thought and energy into doing that. Right.
Yeah, because you think about it, like you can get high performance motors, right? You can get
Yes,
Remy
you can.
motors, you can get
Parker, Remy, right?
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But
It's
those
just
are just
their
so
cost.
expensive. I mean, you're
Exactly.
talking about $10,000,
Yep.
$20,000 motors, right? So
Yeah.
the exciting thing about these Tesla motors is that you can pick them up for nothing, a couple
Yes.
$1,000, and they're
Yep.
500-600 horsepower motors, right?
Yep.
But yeah, once you're starting to have it to
Yeah.
engineer so much into it, you end up with the same $10,000 motor or
Yeah.
$15,000
Maybe. Yeah.
motor.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. It is going to be fascinating to see how this
Until
all
you can
evolves.
get up to the speed where it's like now the same parts work and you got it down to a
Yep.
process or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe
Right.
that's
Exactly.
gonna be
And I think that will be awesome. Like when we've got a whole secondary market of companies that are able to take these motors, repurpose their gearboxes, what have you, and provide them in a supportable, maintainable, manageable, solution. That's what
yeah.
we would love. Like, and so back to like what do I care about? I care about delivering the
Car.
car, right? Like, and whether or not it's using a Tesla motor or it's using a Hyper 9 or it's using a Parker or a Remy, that kind of is, it doesn't matter. It's what's the right solution for the vehicle.
Yeah.
And we would love to to deliver whatever makes the most sense, to the point where we feel confident that we hand the key over, that somebody's going to be happy with it and there's not going to be a problem with it down the line. And so that's really our only factor, right? Like we'll do what would make sense as long
I
as
totally get it. Like, see, like the reason I'm choosing to do like AC50s and Hyper 9s, I think I'm a little bit on the fence on Hyper 9s, just again because they don't have that track record yet, right? They're kind of new still in the market.
They're newer in technology, and they're not as plug and play. Like you have to work with them a little bit,
a little bit more than the other ones. So the AC50s are great because I want to build. My thing is I want to build a fleet of like
I know
rentals, right?
You told me about this, yeah, in Hawaii, right?
So in Hawaii, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm like, listen, I don't care about power. I don't want to give the customers a bunch of power because that makes them dangerous.
Right.
I want reliability, right, and low maintenance. And I know this is low maintenance. I've been driving that thing around for 7 years, and
Forever,
apart from some little sensor that keeps breaking because they got it wrong in the early days. This is a really early powertrain. AC50. The later AC50s, they went with a better sensor. They don't. So I know that those systems are trouble free. Like they run. You know what I mean? Like if you install them correctly, if you drive them around, under certain parameters, they're like bulletproof. They're right. I mean, they're the systems that are on escalators. They're the systems that are on hydraulic pumps to lift. Whatever.
They're in mining vehicles. They're down where people's lives depend on them. No, I get it. No, I'm with you. And I just, it'd be one thing if you could call up, Tesla and order them up, right? But that's not the case, right? And
not yet.
Yeah. So I really, I look forward to people being able to repackage those in very repeatable and maintainable and
well, I can't wait. So, I can't wait to get you. So so people will order just by going to your website. You have some website.
I mean, really, you think about it. These conversions are expensive. And the full package. This isn't like add to the cart.
So they have to call you and talk to you.
Yeah, we have consultations. We discuss this. Every one of our customers are our friends. They're people that we're engaged with. Like I said, it's a journey, right? Like so, these people need to be engaged. They need to be excited about it. It's really more small numbers, high level of attention, high level of, of quality and care. And that's kind of been our model. Now, yes, when we start doing another, like I've got a couple calls tomorrow, people with BMW 2002s, right? And we've done a couple of those. Those are starting to get to the point where, we can, wash, rinse, repeat, with them. And the
replicas definitely would be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the replicas the same way. And so I think that we'll have a mixture, so you asked like, what's the future? The future is not motorsports. I think it's all consistent with what we're doing right now, right? We want to deliver a high quality product to the end customer, and if we can do that with a replica, or we can do that on a car that we've done 5 times before, great. But also, if we can deliver a dream car to somebody, I think that's what inspires me, right? To be able to take in a car that we've always loved, right? And to say, okay, let's do this. Let's make this amazing, right? That is fun, right? That is enjoyable. And it's not to say it's not fun to make a car you've done before, because every time you're doing it a little bit better, a little bit different, you get more efficient at it. But we're really, I think we'll kind of be on both sides of that. And so I envision a future where we've got a set of cars that are more, repeatable and are, almost signature cars, if you will. And then, and then always open to do something exciting and new and different with a platform we haven't done something before.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I hope you guys do great, because we need more classic cars.
Yes.
I mean, it's a good thing. It checks off all the bubbles of the things that you should be doing, right? You should be trying to be less wasteful, and you do that by using an old car that's already out in the world. So instead of destroying it, right, and getting rid of all the, because that's what happens to old cars, but people don't know this, but they get crushed. And you reuse the raw materials, but I mean, you destroyed all that value that it had as a product, as a thing, as a creation, right? And if you keep it around, then basically there's one less car that they have to produce a new car, right? And so that's a good thing. And then if by making it electric, then you're helping a little bit by making it better for you and doing the whole thing. So I mean, what you're doing, it's good in so many aspects. The only people don't like it are the people that want to wrench on them and they want to hear the little motors.
I feel like any one of those, and I've had them, people who are very skeptical, when they get in the seat and they get to experience it, it changes their mind, right? I think I get why it doesn't appeal to them at first, but I think when they truly experience it, it changes their mind. But I agree.
We all like driving cars, it's like, who cares about the sound? Like, the sound is great, but the sound is great when you're inside the car.
Yes. And
it's really annoying when you're outside.
Right.
Like when you're here 2 a.m. and my neighbor, turns his whatever, boom, 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 boom. The video I'm editing right now, you could hear it. I was here like at 3 a.m. and this guy leaves. He works like late shift or whatever, and he's got like one of these cars that has a big rumbling exhaust, and you can hear it in my video, like vroom, 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 you hear that. And I'm like, what is that sound? And you're like, oh my God, it's my neighbor,
It's your neighbor.
It's really cool when you're driving on it.
I was that guy, dude. Like I had a Model A header, with a Chevy V8 and open headers. Open headers. Just like literally just like started up, just the entire neighborhood reverberate, right? And you're just and tearing around the neighborhood, and it seems so cool, but like, you're right.
When you're on the other side, when you're at home trying to watch TV, you're like, what's my neighbor
like, what is that? My kids, I have 2 daughters, they were terrified of this car. They thought they would just run and scream when I would start it up in the garage, right? But I have to say, when I did my the first conversion, that was in the back of my mind, am I gonna hate this? Is this going to be a terrible thing? Am I going to like lose all the passion for it? And so it's a common reaction. I get it. And but the instant you drive a converted car, all of that goes away. One, they're not silent, especially if you're using the existing drivetrain, right? So you hear some of that gear whine,
Yeah.
If you're using the motors that we're talking about, you get to feel the shifting, and you get to hear that, that the motor whine, but you also hear the transaxles, or the transmissions.
The road, the tires on the road, that's mostly what, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of noise that people don't pay attention to
when
the engine.
But we had, like today, I had somebody come over who's interested in the, in a 911 conversion. I took him out in the Speedster, and his first reaction was, he goes, "Oh wow!" He's like, you can hear it, you can feel it. And I was like, "Yeah, no, it's still there." Like he was like, "Wow," that was the biggest concern he had, was that he was going to lose that kind of visceral experience of driving, right? Like that like he wasn't. It was just going to feel like a Tesla with a different shaped body.
Yeah.
And it brought him some comfort that it would still be the classic that he loved to drive. It just would be a slightly different experience, right?
Should be more fun.
Yeah, exactly. A lot more fun.
I mean, more fun when it comes to speed. Maybe not if you're into shifting gears and pumping brakes. Right. Pumping brake pedals, Oh my God!
Trying to make sure.
There's a stop coming up over there. Oh my God! And we start pumping it. Yeah. No, definitely. It's a cool thing that you guys are doing, and I hope all the success to you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd like to go visit you one of these days. I was in Austin, but it was literally the last time I've been out in public.
I know.
Because right after that, we went into this lockdown thing.
Actually, that's not true. You know where we went? My family went. We have relatives in New Orleans. We went to Mardi Gras.
Oh, wow.
And in hindsight, probably shouldn't. But, that was right before all of this.
That was right after.
So,
it was so crazy because when I went to... there's my neighbor just left with this S-Class Mercedes.
Did you see him look at your
like,
van?
"Oh my God, this stupid car." No, when I went to fly to Texas, I had heard the news. The CDC had said, like, expect major disruptions.
Oh, really?
That's what they had said. Yes. And I'm like, well, this is going to be real. I thought, I usually don't pay attention to whatever, but I'm like, I think this is going to be real. So me and my wife went and bought masks.
Oh, you did? Really? You had masks when you were here for Fully Charged Live?
Wow. When we went to the airport.
Enter our mind at that point.
Really? That's so great. Yeah. When we went to the airport, we were wearing masks. And we felt kind of weird because we're not like, not everyone wasn't wearing masks, but I'm like, yeah, look, if this virus is going to come in, it's going to come in through the airport. Like, it's a Chinese, virus. It's coming from China. Where's it going to come from? On the airport, LAX. We're going to go to LAX. Let's wear some masks. So we're wearing masks our flight over there. But then once I got to Texas, I'm like, this is kind of weird. Like, yeah, let's not wear that mask. So we didn't wear our masks at the event. Right. But it was in the back of my head already. I was like, this had already kind of started. At least here in LA, some of us were like, yeah, I think this is going to be real. But once I got to Texas, I totally forgot about it. When we flew back, we wore our masks again. But that was the last time for me. I mean, that's it. We've been in here. I've been working on my shop. And it's almost a year later. It's been 6 months or whatever since. When was that? That was in February, right?
It was, so it was the beginning of February.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I think the reason that it was heightened for you is, one, you're on the coast. I think that there was, and you were going through LAX, and because it was just odd. Like, to us, it was a non-event, at that point, right? And even like I said, when we went to New Orleans, we drive, right? So it wasn't. You didn't
go through the airport.
I think had we gone through the airport and you sit, it's like, oh, I'm going to be in a giant tube for 4 hours with a bunch of people that I don't know. Yeah, I would have done the exact same thing. But it was March 23rd, 24th when Austin went on its lockdown. I'll say its first lockdown because I have no idea what'll happen going forward. And that was through May, and then I brought the crew back, and we have masks and the sanitizing and everything here to kind of keep it. It's a small shop, so it's small set of people, so we have kind of social contract with one another to kind of be smart about things and and do that, and it's been great. We obviously haven't had any illness here, and we're not open to, we're not a public
place,
storefront. So, UPS guys pretty much who we see every day, and then occasionally a customer will want to come and mask up, and we'll keep everything ventilated and keep it outside and make sure that everything's good.
So you haven't been super affected. You haven't been affected badly.
Well, no. Austin definitely has on a whole. Like me personally, during that lockdown, I'd come in to keep the the business going, right? But it was it was kind of depressing to not be able to make as much progress as we'd like.
Yeah.
But now we're kind of still humming along. But Austin, we had a big spike when our Texas basically opened up, and our governor said that he didn't care that the local the mayors had further restrictions. So he said that his regulations kind of superseded anything local, and so everybody was kind of going back to work, and this would have been in mid-May, and then by mid-June the numbers were
crazy,
skyrocketing.
Wow.
Right? And so, thankfully our governor shut down bars and really dropped the restaurant occupancy down. And that honestly has done it. Like you can see the numbers just, and as the mask wearing starts to become more prevalent, as you might imagine, Texans are not all that interested in doing these things, but it's whatever. I feel like in Austin in general, people are respectful and are trying to do their part to keep it that way. And so our numbers have been coming down, and I'm feeling cautiously optimistic. But our schools are going back, but they're going back in virtual mode first,
remote,
and then, and then you get a choice about whether or not you're going to go hybrid, and so I mean,
such a weird thing, right?
Weird.
I'm on both sides of that thing. I'm with the people who are like, screw this. I don't want to wear a mask. Don't tell me what to do, whatever. Yeah. But I'm at the same time, I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
Let's not take a chance. I have elderly parents. My brother came down with it. He was in the hospital.
Oh, really? He had it?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
One of my brothers did. And so I'm like, well, this is, I don't know, man. It's like, it's fake. It's fake until it comes.
Until it's right there. Well, we have a lot of doctors in our family, and we have who witnessed it. We have actually our relatives who were in New Orleans were doctors, and they did their time in the COVID wards, and there was a time when all of the hospitals were COVID wards. It was just 100%, and it was battleground. It was really, really crazy. So.
Yeah, I can't wait to get back. I know some people are saying that it's never going to go back, but I think it will. We forget easily. I mean, look, in the 70s, we all, in the 80s, there was a bunch of little cars because we were all afraid, or whoever was alive at that time, is the scarcity of gasoline, right? The oil wars and that stuff. But look, by the 90s, we forgot. We're all back to our trucks, Hummers. Hummer 2 came out. We were like, the bigger the better. We'll forget. This thing is going to be a thing. Although, I mean, unless a real pandemic really shows up, a real, like, dangerous one that actually kills a ton of people, then it's going to bring us back up to this. But it's kind of sad. Like, the other day I was, like, sitting somewhere in the parking lot watching a bunch of people all wearing masks. And I thought, like, I remember how I used to look at, like, Asian people, because the Asians been wearing like Chinese people and Japanese people. I think they've been wearing these masks for decades now, right?
The cultures are much more attuned to that. Yeah, I have a friend who lives in Tokyo, and he said
it's a normal thing.
Mask wearing is and they were everybody was ready to do this to comply, right? It is just I think culturally fine, right? Like you're
well, and I think they live in tighter cities, right? Like Japan lives in this tiny city. Everybody's on top of each other. It's like New York, but the entire, almost the entire country or whatever. I know there's stuff there that's rural stuff, but I think it lends itself to like, well, these problems that they've been suffering. We live in this country that's all open and the expanses, and it's easy to not get. But now, I mean, now we're there. It was so sad. I was saddened by that. I'm like, we're living in fear. Like, look at this year. Fear has ruled in the U.S. for this better part of this year, right? And so I don't know.
Hopefully you learn, like you said, though. Maybe we learn lessons from this, right? And we learn
I hope
how,
so.
right? We learn how to take a little bit of freedom pain up front to make sure that we get long-term freedom, right? Like how do we do this? This has been, you're right, it's been the first experience with this, and
we've never
hopefully it's going to train us all to realize, like, oh, okay,
when
this
a real one shows up, we know what to do, we know what machinists to use, we know how to do this thing remotely, right? Like I don't know if this hadn't happened, I might have been like, hey man, you want to fly out here?
Yeah, let's get together, right? Exactly.
Let's do this thing.
Well, I went to an actual show. I used to love to go out and see music all the time, and you can't do that anymore. And at first, it was funny to watch. The artists would kind of say, "Oh, I'm doing a live stream," and it would be them. They'd set up like their laptop in their living room, and they'd bust out their guitar, and they'd just have this low quality, but at least you were able to hear them and do this thing. But now what's starting to take on, I literally paid $15 to attend a live stream show at a club here in Austin. So it was actually filmed in the club, but they did super high quality video, super high quality audio, and the artist was there was a chat, so he could engage and he could take requests, and it was fantastic. It was like it wasn't as good as being there, but it was something that was an experience that was way beyond what you would normally get. And I kept thinking, like, okay, so now this could be really cool, Jake, because 500 people came to that and paid $15 a piece, right? Yeah. That club that he was playing in has a maximum occupancy of like 180, right? So it's far more people than would have showed up to the real show, right? And they were from all over, right? So I hope there's a future where this changes us all for the better. Like, imagine in the future, maybe we've got lower occupancy rates in the bars and stuff like that. And so, maybe that place only has 25% of what they normally would have, but there's people in the audience, but they've got guys with cameras and really high quality audio. And then we can go to that show. Like I could do it from here, or I could say, hey man, I'm going to the show. You're up in, my brother-in-law lives up in Western Massachusetts. And I say, hey, log in and watch the same show, and we could share the same thing. Right. Like, and now there'll be 500 people from all over the world watching the same show that's being done, here in Austin, Texas. I think that this is teaching us to adapt, right? We're going to learn how to do things. And it's not just back to normal. It's going to be better than normal, right? We're going to have we're going to have these experiences that we used to not be able to have available to us now, because we've learned to do what we're doing right now. We've learned to have these, like, I get together weekly. In fact, tonight, I get together weekly with these people that I used to work with 20 years ago, that we're all spread out, and and before this, we like email or text every once in a while, and that was about it. Now weekly we get together, have a drink. I'm so caught up on their lives. I love it. And these are people that are just truly important to me. And I just love the fact that this gave me that chance to do it. Now, you're right. I don't like having to, go to Home Depot with my mask on and deal with that stuff, right? Like there's downsides for sure. And
such violation of my freedoms. I feel the same. It's such a weird thing. Yeah.
It's annoying, right? Like, but in the grand scheme of things, like you said, you've got elderly, family members, right? Like, it's not that hard for us to go through this, right? Like, we could do it. It is making me a little stir crazy. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, and I wear it too because of respect. That's such a weird thing. I didn't think that I would be. I think as the older I get, the more respectful I get. So I'm like, it's not for me. I don't want this. I don't feel it. I'm not fearing. But like, I see other people and they're fearful, because they're whatever. I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. I'm going to wear a mask. It's no big deal for me. I'm like, whatever. Yeah. And I get so much hate because on the videos when I put in, I'm wearing a mask. People are like, you sheep.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Oh man, so much criticism. It's crazy.
That's crazy. I mean, I feel like, you're doing something respectful for other people, and you're being criticized for that, right? Exactly. Yeah. Like, it's not like, I feel like
I'm like, if you guys are gonna fight the fight of freedom, like, fight it for something like important. Not a stupid mask.
They're sitting at home typing on their computer, fighting for freedom, right? Like, people are not. They're not
have to wear a diaper. Because you have to wear some cloth over your. Like, come on, like, fight something important. You know what I mean? Like, don't just fight to fight. So it's a weird thing, but it's interesting that you say that about now having contact with people that my wife is doing that. She's like, there's friends that have gone and moved away. Like there's some people that are like in South America. Now she's regularly talking to them, where before it wasn't.
Yeah. No, this is not going away, Jay. This is going to be part of our lives in better and better ways. And that's what I loved about that music experience, right? Which is, it wasn't just the same. Like we all like, okay, now we're doing a Zoom and now we're all sitting, right? Like, and like, but the technology is going to make that better and better and better and better, right? Like you think about it, man, it's in 10 years, the virtual interaction we're going to be able to have with people all over. And that's going to bring us all sorts of, it is, to me, these conversations bring you such perspective, right? So I'm getting on these Zoom calls with my buddy who's living in Japan right now. And, and my other friends who are in, San Francisco and just having that different perspective. We sit and talk about it. We're like, so what's it like there? What's going on, with you guys? Oh, this is happening. That's happening. And I got a friend in Seattle and he's dealing with, the whole, all the protests there. And it brings you closer to all of this in interesting ways. Right. And I like I said, I don't think this is going away. I think this is going to be a part of
I hope so life. Not. Yeah. I really hope that not. It's so weird. I don't feel any different because I was doing this already.
Yeah, that's
I literally get in camera and talk to thousands of people or hundreds of people at a time. So I'm like, oh, everybody's just copying me. I'm like, come on, get your own reality. Why are you joining mine? But no, definitely. Well, this is part of the reason why I started this podcasting thing. Yeah. For a long time, I wanted to do them, and I just didn't have the time. I'm just so busy making content, working on cars, working on batteries. But I'm like, there's a lot of people at home right now, and so. And they're always asking me to talk to people about batteries. People wanted me to post that panel that we had.
Yeah. Oh, really?
And Fully Charged said they would post it, and they never did.
They never did. It's kind of funny.
So, and it's weird because I really didn't see any of the panels throughout that event.
Yeah, I know. Because you had your talk, and then we had our. Yeah, I know. I was just focused
and then the entire time I was talking to like people, like fans, right? They would come up to me and was like, "Oh my God, you're like."
No, you were mobbed, man. It's awesome. It's cool. That was my first experience of watching you and Rich and everybody who are your YouTube stars, right? And watching people just literally flock around you guys. I was like, wow, this is a thing. This is a real big thing.
Yeah, you want to be respectful. Your people drove there from far place and they just want to talk
see
to you,
right?
Yeah, you're like, well, what's more important? It's like, hey, come over. What are you doing? What's your project? It's kind of a weird thing. So it's kind of a weird event because I'm not a celebrity. I'm like a regular guy, right? But when people are like lighting up to talk to you, you're like, what the hell's going on? Come on, like.
So are you going to go? I mean, obviously COVID will rule the thing, but like they're going to come back to Austin in April next year. Theoretically, we'll see if it all happens.
If it pans out.
Yeah, do you think you do Fully Charged?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I don't know. It was kind of a weird thing. I don't want to say nothing negative about him, but it was a weird thing where like we went all on our own. Yeah. Like it was on our dime. We paid for everything, kind of thing. Right. And so I know that that was a very successful event, and so I know they made money, and so I don't know what it's going to be presented to us this time. I would want to be in,
right.
It's like, because I feel like all of those YouTubers brought in all our audiences, like you said, right?
You did.
And it was very evident. Like Rich brought his crowd and Ben Sullins brought in his crowd. And to tell you the truth, I was the one that brought probably the least amount because I'm kind of like in a weird scene.
Maybe. I don't know. It's true.
It was very Tesla centric.
Yep.
That event, and these guys are more Tesla centric. I know they're all kind of going away because they're all feeling the same thing. We're like, we're tired of talking about Tesla. But at that time, so I think they had much bigger roles to play when they came to bringing in people to that event, right? So I don't know how they all feel. I feel like, we should be invited, but like, not just like, hey, come over, pay your way in here.
Maybe, yes.
So I don't know. I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope that they will invite me and they would share, some other form that just, I'm all for it. If they do it, I'm like, let's go. Let's do it. I love Austin, by the way. Austin.
I know. It's a great city, isn't it?
I'm
glad you came.
Austin, I've been there a few times now, and every time I go there, it's so much fun.
Let's hope you can actually experience it again when they like. I don't know how they're going to do this.
Yeah,
I mean, again, it doesn't. Time means nothing. You just have no idea where we're going to be in.
It's so weird. I didn't think we were going to be here.
No, nobody did.
What do you mean a year?
I thought the summer was going to happen, and it was just going to like disappear.
People were going to forget about it, but we're still dealing with it. There's still stuff that it's closed here in California.
Oh yeah.
We can't go to restaurants and eat. We can't.
We're at almost 170,000 people have died, dude. 170,000 people died.
Yes.
But that's a lot of people.
That is a lot of people, but it's not a lot of people when you put up against 330 million people. You're like, more people die from accidents, car accidents. More people die from the flu. More people. Hey, you know what? Smoking. It seems like it's a thing that we don't do anymore, that we've all woken up. Still kills like 400,000 people a year.
Yeah, no, I know.
In the U.S. So when you compare to that, you're like, oh my God, yes, it's a lot of people. Don't get me wrong. Every single one of those people had a family, had someone who, it's a real thing. But this thing where it's locked down, I don't know. It's weird. I wish for it to go away.
We all do.
Let's agree on something. I wish for this thing to
totally, we do.
Let's go back to normal, right? Someday, because I want to. I'm so antisocial, and I'm feeling it now. I'm like, look, I want to go to a place where there's other people. Like, I want to be able to get in a car with like other people that is just not my immediate family. Right. And go to like some place or something, It's like
I'm an extrovert and I love going out and doing it. It's killing me. And just the other day I went to go. I had to check one of our cars is in the paint shop, and so I went to go check it out, and it was like a big adventure. I was going to the paint shop. I'm like, this was like the first time I've been out in forever, right? And I was like, oh my God, this is a big deal, right? This is a huge change. So anyway, it is.
What I'm going to get for you? Paper cutouts like in the baseball games, so you can have them in your bus.
In my bus, I'm driving around with people that are not my family. Yeah, let's do that. Well, listen, I want to thank you for coming to my podcast and spending time with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And sharing a little bit on the adventures that you're going. This is really exciting, and I can't wait to make it out there to your shop and see it when they. Because last time we couldn't, right? We were only there for short and stuff.
Right.
By the way, we were looking for good barbecue while we were in Texas.
Right. Yes.
We wanted to do Franklin's, but of course it's impossible to do Franklin's because everybody wants to do Franklin's up there. Yeah. But you suggested Terry Black.
What did I suggest? Terry Black's, and you could get in and it's
my God, amazing. Now, I don't need a lot of meat. Right, I don't need a lot of meat because I'm trying
that night you did.
But while you're in Texas, you must have.
Did you get the meat sweats? That's the thing. That you've had enough barbecue when you get the meat sweats. Like
I did get the meat sweats.
You get done with your meal and you're like, oh my God, I can't.
Oh well, because it was spicy and it was no, definitely. We ended up going there twice. I think that night that you suggested it, and then we ended up going to some other place the next day. Oh, it was whatever that place that the president went to.
Oh, what's it called?
Whatever is another one, and that wasn't as good. It wasn't as good. We went back to.
Was it downtown or was it where?
It was in downtown.
Was it Cooper's?
Might have been. So we actually took a tour. Yeah. Like we took one of those like downtown tours that they take you around in a bus. Oh, it was that thing that goes into the river.
Oh, the duck.
The duck.
Yeah, exactly. That's hilarious.
We took the duck tour.
That's funny.
And so they were like, oh, this here and that there, and this is really good for barbecue. We're like, oh, let's try it out. It wasn't as good as the Terry Black's. Yeah.
So the thing about barbecue, when I moved to Texas 25 years ago, there was no good barbecue in Austin. It was in all of the barbecue, the good barbecue, you had to go to Lockhart, you had to go to, Luling, you had to go to Richmond. There was a bunch of like Atlanta, there were a bunch of little Texas towns just outside, 20, 30, 40 miles away. And you go there and you go into the building, and then you can smell the smoke, and they're smoking it in there, and you have a little dining room, and you get it. That whole experience was something that you had to travel outside of Austin to get. Wow. And actually, Aaron Franklin, who started Franklin, really kind of changed it, right? Like he grew up in a barbecue family, and he had his own ideas about how to do it, and he started with a little trailer, and he brought arguably the best barbecue in Texas to Austin, and it shook everybody, blew their minds. And so now what you see in Austin is now you don't have to go to all these little towns, because all those places that were surviving because everybody would leave Austin to go to them. Everybody was going to Franklin and a couple others and staying in Austin, and they're like, oh wait, and so they start putting their like Terry Black's or what have you, they put like a version of theirs in Austin so they could get the Austin market. So now we have probably 10 different barbecue places that are super top notch. But yeah, we didn't know that before. I
can't have any because I'm stuck in California. Stupid.
No, I can mail you some, but it's
COVID-19. This stupid. I really starting to hate this stupid virus.
You are just now.
Just now. I just think about it. I can't have
today.
I can't have barbecue. Yeah. So yeah, if you ever move anywhere, I probably at the top of my list would be Austin. By the way, Austin's an amazing city. It's full of life. It's so different than here. I was thinking about this. Now they're starting to set eating places outside. Yes, apparently that's where the virus, it's like, and it gives it like a feeling like in Austin, like everything's outside, like little shack, like a little car.
Is that where Joe Rogan's?
Yeah.
At the lab, I think Joe Rogan's going there, right? No, I don't know.
Yeah,
Where
Joe.
he's going.
Yes, they announced it.
Is that so? He's going to Austin? Yeah. Oh wow, I didn't know it was Austin, but it's something similar here, and I thought like, oh look, this is what I love about Austin. When I was there, it's like it's different. Everything's kind of makeshift. Yeah. Everything's like carefree. It's like not so rigid like California. Here, everything's like law and order. Law and order. It's like I'm so anti law and order.
You should have been here 20, 30 years ago. That's when, Austin used to be this sleepy, hippie town that you could do anything in. Like now it is grown up. I love it as it is now, but it's changed. It literally in the 25 years I've been here, it's more than doubled in population.
Wow.
Like you should look at.
And all Californians, right?
Yeah, a lot of them, but a lot of people come from all over the place, and I
think it's the number one destination to move out of California. It's
a lot of people are. Yep.
There
you go. Come on over.
See, here's the thing. I'm gonna buy a house the first time. I'm gonna have first time home buyer, this year, next year.
Exciting. That's awesome. That's
and when we were there, I'm like, oh, you can buy 2 houses in Austin for the same price as you can buy one here. So I'm like, oh,
you Californians, I know.
Yeah.
Bargain shopping.
So you never know. Maybe I'll become your neighbor one of these days.
There you go. Come on in.
I'll finally say, screw California. Let's get the hell out of here. You and your rules and regulations and taxes and anyways. No, it's good. Life is good right now, so no complaints. Do you want to plug in? I know you have socials that you share. I follow you on Instagram, I think, and I follow you on another couple times. You want to plug those in for people to follow you?
Sure. What you want me to just say right now?
Yeah, just say them, and then we'll put a link on the bottom.
We're Moment Motors everywhere. So MOMENT MOTORS, and that's on Instagram and on Facebook. We have a Twitter account, but we don't really use it. But you can find us there, and that's the URL as well. So you want to check out our.
Yeah, you guys are always sharing pictures of your latest creations, and if you're into that sort of stuff, follow these guys. And if you ever want to have a high end restoration conversion of a classic car,
we're here for you, man.
Call Moment Motors. Because definitely there's not a lot of shops that do what you're doing. In fact, I don't know. I know there's a couple of them here in California, but the wait times are super long, and it's not easy. I think so. I think you're probably the bravest souls out there that are.
Ours is getting longer.
It's getting long.
But
well,
it is. It's getting there.
Maybe after this this podcast, you'll add a few more years. to the line.
We can only hope. Appreciate
Yeah.
it, man.
Well, thank you for joining me. It was a great conversation, and let's do it again in the future. All right?
I would love to. It's great seeing you again. Thanks a lot for having me. Appreciate
All
it.
right. Have a good day.